Hey everybody, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we're taking the ferry out to Pea Patch Island to check out the most historically significant site for the Civil War in Delaware. I'm talking, of course, about Fort Delaware. Get ready for a trip back in time. The 302 starts now. Come on, everybody, let's check out Fort Delaware. Hi, Jake.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Jake
good,
Mueller,
thanks.
right?
That's me. It's good to meet you.
What's your title here?
I'm the Interpretive Programs Manager.
I'm so excited. Can you give us a tour?
Sure, come on in.
So this is amazing. Look at these doors. Wow.
Yeah, these are original doors, 3 layers of oak with then an iron sheet on the outside, and they'll stop anything outside of like a heavy artillery piece.
So when was the fort built?
This fort is built between about 1848 and 1859 or so. Just in time, completed just in time for the Civil War to start.
Now this was the 3rd version?
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, they originally built a sort of a small earthworks version to defend the river passage up to Philadelphia. They upgraded that to one that's a little bit larger, made out of wood.
Okay.
And that one unfortunately caught fire and burned down in the 1830s. And then this is the 3rd.
And here we are. Excellent. This is really amazing. It's all brick, so it's not going to burn down, and has really stood the test of time.
It has, yeah. It's in incredibly good shape, really, for considering how old it is.
Now, this is the most historically significant Civil War spot in the state of Delaware, right?
That's correct. Yeah, this has a real strong tie to that hugely important part of our nation's history that you really don't get anywhere else in Delaware. So it's a really, really special site for that reason, but also for many others.
Now, some people aren't history buffs like yourself, and maybe they don't understand the significance of Fort Delaware, but it was, for the most part, a prison. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's built, like I said, to protect that river passage to the harbor of Philadelphia. But during the Civil War, there were about 33,000 prisoners that came through this site. It was used as a prisoner of war facility, like you said. So you're talking about 33,000 people. At one point, Fort Delaware, Pea Patch Island, is actually the 2nd largest city in Delaware, if you count it all as one city, and about 12,000 people on an 85-acre island.
Now, I got to ask you about the name.
Sure.
Pea Patch Island, how'd that happen?
Yeah, so there's this legend that during the 1750s or so, Pea Patch Island is just a sandbar. It's no larger than a man's hat. So you think about.
Wow.
Yeah, but somehow in the whole river, some ship carrying a cargo of peas hit that sandbar and got stuck. And in order to get unstuck, they had to unload all the peas and leave them behind. And the peas sprouted and the island formed around that. So thus you have Pea Patch Island. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great story.
Seriously, seriously. And when you think about all the activity that happened here, there would be regiments of men here drilling every day. Can you talk a little bit about what life was like when this originally opened here?
Sure. Yeah, so Fort Delaware is really a community of people of all different types, but you'd have soldiers that are here spending their days drilling, 4 hours of drill or practice a day, doing various duties, guard duty, cooking for their fellow soldiers, all kinds of different stuff. In addition to that, you've got civilian laborers, you've got laundresses, you've got cooks, you've got hoteliers, you've got salesmen, all sort of doing their work on Pea Patch Island. So it's really this whole community, this whole town of people, more than just like a fort where you have soldiers running around.
And you talk about the community. It wasn't just, you know, those folks doing work for, you know, the officers and the soldiers. They oftentimes, there was like a society, like a community within the prisoners. So they all kind of like traded and worked and lived and interacted with each other.
Exactly. Yeah, there's this whole economy that goes on in the prison. So you've got thousands of prisoners and they're just finding some way that they can make money. So they'll offer to do laundry for each other, or they'll have lessons. Or if you can buy some ingredients, you can make something that approximates cake and you sell slices of cake there was a newspaperman that actually hand wrote a newspaper that he then distributed and sold. And if you look at the newspaper, it's got advertisements. So if you want barber services, go to this place. If you want somebody to write a letter home for you, go to this place. It's really, really incredible, this community that forms.
Now, people, when they come to visit, they can check out, you know, the land and everything and the structures, but back then, can you tell me what the barracks were like versus what the prison cells were like?
Sure. So actually, there's not as much of a difference there as you might imagine in the modern times. The barracks for soldiers that are stationed here are large rooms with bunk beds. So you're going to get maybe 75 to 100 people all together in this really big room living in bunk beds. The prisons are more like bunkhouses. So you've got long bunkhouses with 3 tiers of bunks on either side, and it's going to be a lot more crowded. So in an 80-foot segment at full capacity, you might have about 200 people. But as a general rule, it's very similar in that sense, that's essentially just bunks.
And the officers, they were in
officers,
nicer
that's totally
quarters.
different. Yeah, so officers have nicer quarters. They've got private quarters, in some cases private houses outside the fort that they're living in. But you're talking about your family has 1 room to 2 rooms for just your family. So that's a much better situation for sure.
Now you guys have set things up to give people a feel for what it was like. So you have examples of those things like the barracks and the prison cells here for us to look at?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of our rooms are furnished in a way such as that we believe would approximate what they would have been like during the Civil War. And we've got stuff in there you can look at. We've also got staff that wears the costumes so that you can come in and interact like you're visiting the fort in 1864. It's really pretty cool.
Now I know one of the things that a lot of the visitors and of course all of our viewers are probably going to be really excited about are the cannons, and you do cannon demonstrations, is that right?
We do, yeah. We actually fire one of the largest guns from the Civil War period that's fired anywhere in the country.
So let's check that out. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Debbie Buxton, the Executive Director of the Historic Odessa Foundation. Discover our collections on the 302.
Welcome back. We are here at the main attraction, I think, the cannons. This has got to be a big crowd pleaser for you.
Oh, absolutely. This is probably our most popular program.
What have we got here?
So this particular cannon is a 32-pounder Seacoast gun. This is one of the, believe it or not, smaller guns that would have been at Fort Delaware. It's about 7,000 pounds.
So how far can it shoot?
This one has a range of a mile, which will get you to either shore. But the largest gun that was here had a 3-mile plus range, about 3¼ miles.
And you said these are 32 pounds, but they get a lot bigger than that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So like I said, the 32-pounder that we got here, that's a 32-pound solid ball that it'll fire. The largest gun that was here during the Civil War fired a 128-pound ball.
Wow.
So if you can imagine trying to carry that or lift that or load that into the tube of a cannon, it's crazy to think about.
Now there's a story, because you know it comes to Fort Delaware from somewhere else, and you have to get the cannonballs from the first floor to what, the third floor?
Third tier.
So there's a story, right?
Yeah, so actually this comes from Fort Sumter, right before the Civil War starts. When the Army first arrives there in, I think it's January of 1861, they have to find a way. The fort's not complete yet, and they don't have any sort of block and tackle to get anything up. So the guy in charge actually says, I bet you none of you boys is man enough to carry this 128-pound ball up to the top of the fort. And someone says, I'll do it. So he does it, and then everyone else has to prove that they're man enough too. So that's how they get all their cannonballs to the top of the fort.
Now you mentioned in the previous segment that there would be drills 4 hours a day. They would be practicing, loading, doing whatever their function was with these cannons. But the question I have is A, did they use real cannonballs when they did it? And B, how accurate were these things?
So those are both really good questions. When they drilled, usually when they drilled, they're just using a friction primer. So it's like firing a cap gun basically. They would use a full powder charge once a month. And then every 3 months, they would actually do a live fire where they'd try to hit a target out on the river. So a barge or something that they'd float out there. Now, as to how accurate they are, I don't know for sure. I've been told that there are like accuracy records. I've not seen them myself. But you don't have to be too accurate when you're firing a 128-pound ball at a large ship. So you're accurate enough for sure.
So explain why that is.
Sure. So the idea of Fort Delaware is you're probably going to be shooting at a ship. The shipping channel is only maybe 300 yards away. So if you're firing with something that is ranged out to a mile or 3 miles, 300 yards isn't that far. And then that's a pretty big target. So a ship is 100, 200 feet long. That's going to give you quite a lot of area to hit. So chances are, one of you, with all the guns that you got firing, is going to hit something solid on that ship.
That's amazing. And I can imagine it's probably a very like a precision kind of thing. They all have to work together, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a dance when you see it. It's 5 people to load one of these guns, and everyone's got their job, and you have to do it quickly and efficiently. And you really have to practice a lot to learn the steps so that you can do them in your sleep like that. And
you guys do a demonstration every day, right?
We do, yep. We fire a pound of powder, 1 pound blank, out of our 8-inch Columbiad, which is a pretty large gun. And we do that once a day.
Battery make ready! Gun 1, 2, 3, fire!
And so our crew gets quite a bit of practice, really, but not 4 hours a day's worth.
So whenever you're talking about the cannonballs themselves, do you have any of the original cannonballs? Do you have things that are original to Fort Delaware?
So not necessarily to Fort Delaware. There's not a whole, we have a couple things that are, but not much. We do have some original cannonballs from the period and from the guns that are the same type that would have been here at Fort Delaware.
Now, are there any documents about written histories of the folks that armed and manned the cannons? You know, I understand it was very perilous. You could like lose an arm very easily.
You could, yeah, especially if you're doing something you shouldn't do. We've got a number of good records at Fort Delaware. The 2 that really come to mind, we've got a diary that was kept by one of the soldiers that was here, and we've got a series of letters that was written to the brother of someone that was here. And they really give you an idea of what it was like to be here and sort of the boredom, but also the hard work of running the guns and all of that. And someone gets sick or breaks a leg doing the drill, things like that. So really very fascinating. We're lucky to have all those sources. Any
tales of missing a ship and hitting something they weren't supposed to hit?
No, I don't have any tales from here about that. Yeah. That definitely happened in certain other areas, but not that I'm aware of at Fort Delaware.
What's the most commonly asked question whenever people come and they take the tour of the cannons?
Of the cannons, probably how much does it weigh or how much does the projectile weigh? And we're talking about real heavy artillery. So like I said, 128-pound balls and a weight of probably 12,000 for that largest cannon. So really something else.
That's amazing. Now this is just one stop of many here at Fort Delaware. And when we return, we're going to find out where you would go and get some grub. We'll be right back.
I'm Kim Collison, Curator of Exhibitions at Winterthur Museum, Garden and Library. Thanks to 302 for bringing us all great fashion.
Welcome back. We have moved from the cannons into the mess hall, and this is pretty cool. I was looking at the menu. Doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, it really wasn't. It was not super nutritious. You don't get a lot of vitamin C, but there was more than enough calories there to keep you going for the day. So fresh beef, fresh bread, beans, coffee, maybe some rice, and then whatever fruit you can get your hands on.
Nice. Now, while we're shooting the show, we're struggling a little bit because it's really hot and humid here. But it's cool when you come inside, and it's because of the way the building is designed, right?
Yeah, the engineers that built Fort Delaware were really smart, and they knew that they needed a water source. So what they did is they designed a way that rainwater would be caught up on the roof, and there are filtration rooms that then lead down into cisterns built under the floor. So that's the drinking water for the fort, and because we're built on top of those cisterns, it really does keep the rooms quite cool.
So it's the drinking water, but it's also the cooking water. So,
correct.
You know, tell me a little bit about who was cooking here and what would they, I mean, I know bacon and bread and things like that.
Sure. So the units that are stationed here at the fort, this would have been a mess hall for one of those units. And in the back, you have the kitchen. And basically, the unit is electing or choosing somebody from within their ranks to be the cook for a 3-month period or so. So you just hope the guy knows how to cook, right? Otherwise, you're probably throwing all the ingredients in a pot and turning it into stew. But that's roughly how it worked.
Now you also have, in addition to a setup of what it would have been like for the mess hall, all the guys sitting here eating, yep. You also have the store. Explain to me how that would work, that people could work not for money, but for, I guess, credits?
Sure, yeah, and that especially applies to the prisoners because you had what's called a sutler here at Fort Delaware, and that's just somebody who has a contract to sell at an Army base. So if you're stationed here as a soldier or as a prisoner, you have access to that and you can buy fruit or stamps, things of that nature. But if you're a prisoner, you don't get to actually keep your usable money. Instead, if you come in with $10, that's going to be taken away from you and then traded in for credit at the store, which is called sutler's checks. So then as you go and buy things, they're going to keep track of how much credit you have. That way, you're not going to bribe a guard and escape.
Fantastic. So when we're walking around Fort Delaware, we see all these people in period dress, and they give people a glimpse into who they're portraying. Talk to me a little bit about how you have these stations.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So when you come visit Fort Delaware, we have a number of different rooms throughout the fort that are furnished. And inside we have staff members, and they're portraying characters that would have been here at the time. So we have folks that are laundresses and upper class ladies and soldiers and prisoners and all of this. And the idea is that we're trying to paint that whole community that lives here so that when you come visit, you can interact with all parts of that community as though you were visiting and seeing it as it was during its height in the Civil War.
You guys are open during the summer months for basic tours, but you do 5 days a week, right?
Yep, Wednesdays through Sundays, yep.
But you do a lot more than that whenever it gets a little cooler than it is now. I mean, we're dying from the humidity, but talk to us a little bit about what can happen in the fall, what we can see in the fall.
Sure. So some of our popular tours that take place Fridays and Saturdays in October are our paranormal adventure tours, where you can come out and you can investigate with a group that the Diamond State Ghost Investigators that we partner with, and you can investigate as though this is trying to figure out if there's something paranormal going on here. We also do some special tours in September where we have usually have a family overnight at some point in September where you can bring your family and you can camp out here, which is fantastic. We've also done some escape room style programs after hours where you come out and solve a mystery for a couple hours and try to see if you can escape Fort Delaware.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is, yeah, it's really cool.
Well, you guys are focused on history and you're focused on the events. You're surrounded by beautiful wetlands and wildlife. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple of initiatives that are going on. Talk to me about taking care of nature out here.
Sure. So we have just recently, the state spent a good bit of money to rebuild our heronry platform. There is a heronry here on the island that at one time was the largest East Coast heronry north of Florida.
And when you say heronry,
so we're talking about great blue herons, egrets, any kind of wading bird species, and they're making their nests on the north end of Peapatch Island. So we've just rebuilt this nice new platform where you can stand and you can look out at the nests, which is really, really cool to see when they're all out there. We also redid the trail that leads out to that, so you can enjoy a nice little walk through and see all kinds of different birds that nest at Fort Delaware.
And when you say we, you're talking about staff members, but volunteers and donations really help this make the dream work here.
Yep, absolutely. We can't do what we do without people that really care about the site and the history. So we're always looking for volunteers, and we're always looking for folks that want to donate time or money or any sort of initiative to help us out.
So if somebody wants to donate time or money or just find out what the situation is, what time they can visit, where do they go? So
we have a website, destateparks.com. Fort Delaware has its own page on that website, and you can check us out there. You can also check out our Facebook page, Fort Delaware State Park, or you can call our office, which you can find that information online as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So last word, what's the one thing besides the history and the canyons that we didn't talk about that you want to share?
So again, I can't stress enough that this is a whole community, and there are people of all different backgrounds, all different levels of education, all different races and ethnicities working here together, making this place run. And that's what really makes it cool and special to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you so much for coming.
It.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Are you enjoying the show? Well, at least you're not experiencing this heat. I'll give you a pointer. If you come out, make sure you bring some water and snap some pictures and share them with us on our Facebook page. Now, here are some other things you might want to check out in our area. For more information on Fort Delaware, make sure you visit destateparks.com. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 302. Make sure you follow us on Facebook for behind-the-scenes videos and information you won't get anywhere else. We're going to leave you now with beauty shots of the wetlands around Fort Delaware. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on the 302.